Hi, welcome to Creative Leadership. I'm your host, Jeremy Sirota. In life, most people only chase one dream, and when they capture it, they keep trying to recreate it. My guest today is someone who's never even stopped to consider that the majority of the world only drives one thing. He caught global success at an early age as a co-founder of the band Bad Religion. Then he went on to launch Epitaph Records, not only one of the most iconic labels in the punk scene, but in the American independent music scene. And then he kept going. It's Hellcat Records, it's Burning Heart Records, it's Anti Records. Then he launched publishing and merch companies. Brett Gurewitz has spent more than 40 years showcasing that your initial success does not have to define you. And I'm really excited to talk to him today about how he's done all this. So, Brett, welcome to Creative Leadership.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's great to be here.
I'm going to dive right in with something you've said many times before about how you have what you call a beginner's mind. And when I hear that, it sounds like you're trying to channel this almost childlike wonder about the world. And I found as we get older, it's hard to keep things fresh because we've experienced so much. And yet you seem to keep this mindset, even when I know people in their 20s who struggle with this. And I'm kind of curious how you've gone about that.
Huh. Yeah. You know, I think it's not something that I've deliberately tried to cultivate, but it's something that I learned about that I think that I've always had. And maybe it comes from insecurity, honestly, but it's sort of, just a matter of never being too certain, never being too sure. And hanging on to sort of your curiosity and wonder about the world, and being excited to change your view in the presence of new information. Beginner's mind is knowing what you don't know, being always willing to learn uh, the best of things that other people have already figured out. And that's sort of, that's the joy for me of, of living, really, is just continuing to learn new things, continuing to grow. I have a teenager and I have a tween right now. And sometimes they'll ask me something often, and I'll give them an answer, and they'll say, "Are you sure?" And I would just always say, "No, I'm not sure."
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to be sure about anything. But the problem is that people go through their lives and they might become great experts in one area. And they think that because they've had some great achievement in one area, that means they have that same level of expertise about everything. So yeah, beginner's mind for me is always being unsure.
So I'll give you an example that just from myself yesterday. I find for me, I have a very curious mind, which I sense you do as well.
Hmm.
And sometimes though it takes intentionality because I always call it getting into the slipstream, right? You just start going and you just keep going straight on that path and you go with what's familiar.
Hmm.
And so yesterday, a company reached out to us who said, "Hey, could you come advertise in our newsletter?" And two things to that. One is we don't advertise. Like that's just not the nature of how our company operates.
Hmm.
But instead of just reflexively ignoring it or saying no, I actually sent it to the team and I said, figure out 5 reasons to say yes to this. And then we could poke holes in that. Like, do you
Hmm.
develop, like, do you have like ways that you approach this? Like, it can't just all be subconscious. You to pause and to challenge yourself or to listen to someone when you might initially disagree takes like energy and effort. I'm just curious, how do you
Hmm.
handle that?
Yeah, I don't know. That's the fun. I think your question really had two parts. You're talking about getting into the slipstream, but you're also talking about being open to new ideas. I just think that I've always been a contrarian. All right. That's part of the fun, right? I like, I always tell jokes. I like humor. I like sarcasm. And when someone has an idea, I like to think, well, what about the opposite? And sometimes if you invert things, then you can, that's one of the keys to creativity, right? Creativity is problem solving,
Yeah.
right? It's ideation and iteration, right? You get a problem and you think about an idea, and then you iterate that idea, and then you filter out the bad ones, and you come up with what's left, and then you iterate on those, and you filter those out, and you keep going down that path. So that's one way to do creative problem solving.
Mhm.
Another way is inversion, and this applies to solving a bottleneck in a business or in writing a song. You could be stuck in any kind of a creative problem. And inversion is, hey, what if I looked at it backwards? What if I looked at this and this problem? What would I have to do to make it as bad as possible? Right. And then you can turn it on its head and say, okay, well then, let's do the opposite of that. So yeah, I can get caught in that same thing. So how do you maintain that open-minded mindset? I guess you can cultivate it, but I also think that for certain people, it's part of their personality. It's helpful that I well, I don't know if it's helpful, but it's not coincidental that I started off as a punk rocker. So, and I
Yeah.
think some of those traits can be helpful
Yeah.
in work and the workplace as well.
Yeah. It was definitely, it was part of the sort of mantra when I was growing up with my parents, but also when I went to school. I went to undergrad, which seems forever ago, but at Berkeley. But question everything was definitely a big part of the education process there, or at least the courses I took, and that can feel a little contrarian sometimes when you're working with others. You're like, why are you doing it this way? What's
Mm,
the rationale behind this? And so
mm,
I've actually had to learn to channel that into a more productive, good sounding way. And I tend to also use humor a lot as well. I think there's something to people who work really hard, because I know you work really hard, and myself. We'll get to that. I have some examples. But working really hard and finding humor in life, I think actually is a really good way to maintain your energy when otherwise your body might give out.
100%. And also following your passion, or the way I like to look at it, going where the fun is. If you like what you're doing, if the problems you're solving are things you're interested in and find gratifying, then you never feel like you're working.
I've never had a single passion in life. I mean, within, even within music, you've had many different passions across different aspects of it, because there's so many elements to music. I'm very passionate, but I tend to follow my curiosity.
Hmm.
I'm very curious about things. So it could be today, like, let's talk about AI. Tomorrow, let's talk about where's the creator economy going. Tomorrow, it could be about, is this the end of civilization, or what do we do to stop it? Or I don't know, let's have fun talking about reversing things. How can we accelerate it, just to see it as a thought experiment?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I'm the same. I think that you are passionate about something. You're passionate about learning. You're passionate about curiosity. Where your interest takes you, you follow it. And I think we definitely have that in common. I'm the same. I'm 63 years old now, and I look back and I've been doing the same thing since I was 17. So it's been a long run. And, uh, uh, you know, I, when I try to think about, hey, what does all this mean? And I've not really been one thing. You're right. I've been an entrepreneur, and I've been a songwriter and a recording artist and a record producer and a dad and a backpacker and a meditator, blah, blah, blah. But what all these things have in common, right? Is if they're all just, for me, it's all play,
mm,
right? And what makes a fun game, right, is problem solving, right? People sometimes go through life and trying to avoid problems, but a game wouldn't be any fun if there was no problem to solve in it, right? Whether it's getting across a goal line or pass and go without going to, collecting $200, or the Queen's Gambit, whatever it is, it's problem solving, and in games and in life. I think for people who are curious and people who are just sort of polymathic intellects like yourself, I think that what they're passionate about is life itself. They're passionate about living life and finding things out.
I'm gonna use a quote, and I can't remember where it comes from. So it probably comes from like Titanic or some soap opera. But It's life is problems, living is solving them. And that always kind of resonated a lot with me. So can I put a problem to you? I got a
Yeah.
couple of,
Hit me.
all right. So here's something also very interesting about your career, which is many successful people tend to get risk averse, right? They've had success and they know what that looks like, and now they have something to lose.
Hmm.
I look at your career, and maybe I don't know if you would put it this way from the outside. It looks like you continue to take risk on as your career is unfolding, and whether that's betting on new business ventures, really betting on unproven artists. And I'm just curious, what is the thought process around how you distinguish between good risk, stupid risk?
Okay. So I am risk averse. I know it might seem like I'm not, but I truly am risk averse. I have some ideas around risk. First of all, this idea comes from Nassim Taleb, and he says that there's no such thing as medium risk. Okay, you've got zero or near zero risk, right? Like sitting here talking to you is very low risk for me. I'm not going to fall out of my chair, right? And then there's catastrophic risk, right? There's uh, hanging from my fingertips off the Empire State Building. What he says is, he says, put 90% of your effort into the minimal, close to zero risk category, and you put 10% into the high risk, high gain category.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you achieve medium risk. He says, because anybody who tells you that they can figure out the probability in any of these complex areas that we're living, they simply can't. Nobody can predict the weather. No one can really predict the economy. So that's one thing about risk. And the other thing is this, that I feel that really all I've done to get this far is that, I've had a lot of failures, but I've not had a single catastrophic failure. As a business person, you need to take risks, but you don't need to get it right all the time. You need to get it right 10% more often than your competitor. If you do that for the whole time, then you're killing it. But the other thing you have to do is you have to avoid catastrophic risk. So my kids have to wear their seatbelts.
That's good because no, and there's no disrespect to my parents because this was just the era when I grew up. Seatbelts were optional. We had a big suburban truck and we would load like 12 kids in the back of that and drive down to the beach, and that was just completely normal. And now I look back, I was like, "What were we thinking? Like that's crazy."
So I make a lot of small bets, and it's fun. But I never bet the farm.
So there is this term I learned recently, and I'm curious how you relate to this. It was called VUCA, and it came out of the Cold War, where the nature of war became very different, right? It wasn't just this battlefield, the set battlefield where you had an army on this side, an army on this side, and you fought till one side won, and then the war was over. You entered this period of what they called volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, VUCA. And even though you are taking quote unquote these what you call these small bets, don't bet the farm. Every time you're taking a bet, you're entering in some level of VUCA. And what I'm curious about is that approach, that sort of 90-10, what allows you to get comfortable entering into these types of areas? Or is there something else you do? Because most people do not like VUCA. But that's the way you create new things. That's the way you create new opportunities. And so it's always like, how do you learn to embrace how uncomfortable it can make you feel?
Okay. So what is it? VUCA? Is that
VUCA.
Okay. Volatility.
Uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity.
Okay. So life is VUCA.
Yes.
Not just the period after the Cold War, the period after brushing my teeth is VUCA. And so the way you navigate that defines who you are, and I think that you basically, that's what we're all doing, is we're trying to figure this thing out. I think it's important to preserve optionality, right? I think it's very, very important to be positive. It's tough to be positive today with everything that's happening in the world. But, at any given time in history, there was enough chaos and tragedy in the world to do nothing all day, but think about it. And it's no different today, but it was no different in the 18th century. Trust me. It's always a choice to be positive. And not only that, but I think it's important to be positive because positive people actually are more successful. And so preserving optionality, being positive, understanding risk and avoiding catastrophic risk, and just learning how to avoid foolish mistakes, learning to become a better decision maker. And I don't mean to say a decision maker, meaning a manager in a business. It could be, for yourself as a college student, or for your family as a partner with your wife and your family, or as a father. Nobody starts out knowing how to make wise decisions, right? And you don't have to always get it right, but you have to take chances. You have to screw up and learn from your mistakes. That's why I think positivity is so important, because the only way you learn and grow and you start becoming better at making decisions is by making mistakes and solving problems and moving through them. You said something about, you had a quote about problems. My favorite one is from this scientist, philosopher, David Deutsch. He says, problems are inevitable, but problems are soluble.
Hmm.
And, that's sort of my credo, is that I try to look at problems as a positive, not a negative in life.
Yeah, it's an opportunity. When I was younger, I always had this view that everyone else has gotten this guidebook to life that I hadn't received. And yes, I know it's so obvious now.
Yeah.
But at the time, I truly felt that. And what I just realized is that I was just thinking about it probably more than everyone else. And even others were having the same doubts. And what I came to realize is that kind of something you were just saying is that you have to throw yourself at it. You just have to experience new things. And I'm a big believer in trying to keep a positive mindset as well, because it helps you, because life is not always easy. It can be quite challenging. And one of the things I was curious about for kind of new generations is when you're earlier in your career, and you probably still do it, maybe not to the same degree, but you were in the studio recording with hundreds of bands. I assume hundreds, lots, many bands.
No, definitely hundreds.
Hundreds. Okay.
Definitely. Yeah.
And that hands-on experience, not just as a sound engineer or as a producer, but it's just all these soft skills you're building are so astronomically valuable. You probably don't even realize how much it shows up in your business and what you do. And I'm just curious, how do you help to replicate that for others within your company? Like the things that you were able to get in your career by what you did, you clearly, some of those would be very valuable for those who work for you. Is there like ways that you try to integrate that into how your company operates?
I love mentoring young employees, and I love mentoring young recording artists, and sharing what I've learned with them, to the point where I think it maybe can be annoying. That's the joy for me, and it's not for everybody, but I can't do a lot of the things I used to do when I was a kid. And when I see young people coming up, and maybe they want to be a writer, they want to be a recording artist, they want to be in the music business. And if I've done these things, I just love talking to them and sharing with them. If they ask me questions,
Really rewarding, first of all.
yeah, it's rewarding, and it that's exactly what it is. It's sort of the payoff of having gone through everything, is that I can share it with others.
About 2 years ago, I started doing these conferences for this nonprofit where they bring all these high school students in who are interested in getting into music, whether on the artist or songwriter or business side. And, you know, I'm always guilty of this. I think I know nothing about the music industry because there's always so much more to learn. But I, of course, realize at 48 versus 18, 30 years helps a little bit. And it's very rewarding to walk into that room, and whether it's one-on-one with someone or 150 people in a room, it's just, there's something so special about trying to give someone a view of the world that they didn't have before, frame it in a way they hadn't considered before, to kind of approach it differently. Because you can't do it for them. All you can help them do is to understand where they're at A, and then help them to try to find what B is for them and how to get. And
Yeah.
I enjoy that a lot myself as well.
I know, it's the best. Yeah.
All right, here's another one. It was just this is more like just my curiosity. It sort of has nothing to do with anything we've talked about before, but you work with once again so many artists and across so many genres too. Right? It's not just punk. You're an Americana. Like I don't even probably know half the genres you're in, but you bridge so many different genres in what you've done. One of the things I'm curious about is there a pattern you see in bands that's become successful that they may not recognize in themselves early on, right? Like there's obvious ones like hard worker,
Mhm.
natural talent, like that. Like I'm just wondering if there's something more that you've spotted over time.
Uh, I,
And can I tell you why I'm asking?
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
I'm curious about it from a band perspective, but I'm also just curious about it, which is it can be you're always trying to judge someone and like how committed they are and how interested they are and like how much should I give them an opportunity? How much should I bet on them? Like I guess we're back to sort of
yeah,
risk
yeah,
profiles, trying
yeah,
to figure out like evaluate through the risk profile where it's a good risk or bet to take.
sure. So there's two sides to that question. One is there something is there something in common across all these types of artists that would be the X factor
Mhm.
in as a reason for their success. And so I'm going to say yes, there is, but you're not going to like the answer. But the best that I can tell you after doing this for years is that
Is
the X factor is luck.
yeah, yeah.
Um, because I've seen the most talented, charismatic, hardworking artists, and it just never worked out for them.
Mhm.
And I've seen artists that came in, with a little talent and, just sort of some dilettantism and, you know, throw a song out there and it blows up. But the other thing I'll say is that the talent is real.
Mhm.
Artistic talent is real. I've found that, hard work and practice and can really help you grow. I've come across kids who just have so much damn uh, instinctive talent that it just blows my mind. And when I come across that, it's like a miracle. It's like and it's such a beautiful thing. And it's one of the things that makes me love doing this because when you find a person like that, you want to help them, and you want it to work out for them, and then you do everything you can, and it doesn't always work, and no one can say why.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I found two things that can help to get through that, especially if you maybe don't have as much, natural talent as others. I don't think I'm the smartest person. I don't think I'm the most talented person, but I'm willing to throw myself at it time and time again. And I call that kind of the quantity rule, right? If you just keep trying over and over and experimenting and being willing to realize like a lot of it's going to be not great, you're going to learn from that and then find that quality out of it, which can be really helpful. And
Mhm.
so that's something that I've done. And then I think there is an aspect of timing. People try something and it doesn't work. And so they stop and they try something different. And sometimes there's just an element of timing to it. And that's a little bit of that luck, right? You're trying to create intentional luck for yourself by more content, more experimentation, and trying it again and again to see if timing will make a difference.
No, 100%. I mean, you can't, uh, y- you can help your chances, obviously. I don't mean to say everything is luck. And when I say that, the X factor is luck, that applies to me too. I'm a white baby boomer born in Los Angeles in 1962, uh, to a middle class family, and that was sheer luck. I would, the, everything that's happened for me in my life would have never happened if I had been born as a Uyghur Muslim in China. I'm incredibly grateful for my luck, but yeah, that's just how the universe works.
I want to look a little bit more about sort of the business side of what you do. And this is kind of leaning into this production you do, but you're more than just a producer for the bands that you work with, right? You can. It seems to me you're a creative collaborator, you're a business partner, you're a boss, sometimes you're even a mentor. And I look at that, and that's this old school music industry model that we kind of don't see as much anymore.
Mm,
And what I'm actually curious about is sort of people struggle to wear different hats
mm.
when they're playing the same role. You have this one role of what you're trying to do. And I'm kind of curious, how do you move between these different hats? Like how do you help them? Like is it just subconscious? You're just like, instinctually what you need to be at any given time, or are you think
No, no, no. I think that it's all the same thing. It's I'm a creative person, and my joy is in expressing that creativity. Uh, I like to draw. I like poetry. I like songs. I like you know uh, I like business. And people think of business as creative, but it absolutely is. If me and my colleague Sue I see a bottleneck at the company, and we want to riff on creating a new process to solve that bottleneck. That's fun. To me, that's like sharpening up a chorus, or figuring out what I can subtract from a mix to make it hit harder. Or it's all just it, if you're solving problems in an area that you find fun, uh, then it's all just creativity. So and to be honest with you, sticking into any one of those areas would be boring,
yeah,
and my life isn't boring. It's never been boring, and super, super grateful for that. But maybe the reason I've ended up in this place is because I was always trying to sort of uh, run away from boredom.
I can relate to that as Uh, if my mom had a common complaint, stop being bored, go figure out something to do. And I can still hear her saying that because she worked from home. She was an artist, she was a jewelry maker. And so she would be home a lot when I was there. She said, go out, explore the world. There's so much. And uh, that was such a great
Right.
mantra, even if I didn't totally buy into it or accept it at the time. It took me a while to learn that lesson.
Right. That's how I feel about it. If you're bored, you're not paying close enough attention, because
Yeah.
there's plenty of amazing shit right there.
Yeah, all the time, all the time. I love that. And we, what someone our company does is, can be a little bit wonky and behind the scenes and operational. And I constantly instill into the company like how creative some of these elements are, like trying to create a new workflow, a new process to optimize this. This is not just like tweaking knobs. It's like a creative process because you have to take yourself out of what is and try to imagine what could be. And that requires imagination. And I love that. I love that stuff. Basically, and we're similar in this. You weave. Let me be clear. Nowhere near your level of creativity, but you weave between a creative mindset and a process mindset, which most people see as in opposition to each other, but
Mm.
I believe can be weaved together quite seamlessly.
Yeah, I don't think they're different, honestly. The creativity is a process. As I said, it's an iterated process. So you have an idea, you iterate, you filter out the chaff, you zero in on the stuff that you like, you iterate on that, and it's natural selection in the space of ideas. That's the process.
Yeah. I want to give you an interesting hypothetical because I'm kind of just curious how you would answer this. Uh, so there is a band, new band that you believe in, and these are all made up numbers. You need $100,000 to help them create the breakthrough album. You're looking at the data, comparable artists, where the market's at, you name it. Says the potential is they're never going to recoup. They're going to, and actually it'll be a loss for your company as well. So the spreadsheet is saying no. Your gut is saying yes. How
Mhm.
do you distinguish between, that's not quite a quote unquote a catastrophic failure. How do you distinguish whether that is a risk worth taking? Like, what is the decision making process you go to? And is there ways that you try to say, how do we need to look at this differently, maybe? So it's not just, this is the math, this is my gut. Actually, there's a third path to look at this.
Um, right. Yeah. So what you just described is another decision making technique where you can break the binary, right? Where so sometimes you have a problem and you can look at the solution as being a binary solution. So another thing that you can always do when you're trying to tackle a problem is say, is there a third option? Why am I stuck in a binary, right? So, uh, but sometimes there isn't one, right? You can always come up with something, but sometimes it's unsatisfactory. Um, you know, I, I I think it's back to avoiding catastrophic losses
Mm,
because in the in the record business, nothing is certain, and if you really believe in the talent of the artist and the genre they're operating in, and it's a genre you're investing in because you like it and you believe in it, um, uh, then then I think as long as the risk uh, is survivable risk, it's acceptable risk, um, then you go for it, right? And there's other reasons to take on records. So, like for example, let's say you think this group is just so amazing that critics are going to love them no matter what, but it might not be commercial yet. Well, that's good for your brand, right? If you sign things that are prestigious and have artistic integrity, that will attract other artists to your label. And so, that's something money can't buy. It has a value, right? You can't get that kind of reputation through advertising. So you can think of it as, but you want to look at not just financial costs. You want to look at opportunity costs because
mhm,
every record that we put out, we do our very best uh, to promote and grow and develop. And so it's not just the investment in terms of the financial investment, but it's the hours and the thought processes and the creativity and all the people involved spending, you know, thousands of hours collectively on this thing. And so
mhm,
you can't do too many of those, right? Um, but what I will say is this: as long as you you pick your battles, and you don't have too many of those projects that are sunk costs, uh, then what you're looking to do is have successful records. What you're looking for if you want to grow a business, and it doesn't have to be a record; it could be um, a campaign, it could be a product. You're not looking for the rare, extraordinary successes. What
mhm.
you're looking for are small, consistent wins. And if
Mhm.
you can do that and avoid catastrophic losses, then you're going to grow through just kind of dogged incremental improvement. And I feel like that's what we've done. We've had a few sort of astronomical hits over the years at the company, but for the most part, what we've done is we've just had a good, steady record of solid growth.
I do love that idea about getting out of the binary and what you said about sort of looking at the bigger picture. That example of, well, if you create this momentum or you get a new genre, you attract new artists. You're just kind of looking at it wrong if you're just looking at a gut versus spreadsheet, and it can be challenging. I mean, this is where people get stuck in that slipstream of the binary, and you just have to sort of step outside of it for just a second to think bigger and sort of challenge how you approach things. And people struggle with that. That's why I think it's really interesting to hear how you come at this.
Mm,
All right, you ready for a peering around corners question?
sure.
Okay, you've had a great opportunity to watch the industry evolve, right? Obviously, from physical formats and variety of them into digital downloads, into streaming, now into social music. There's a mini pivot back to physical with vinyl again. We have obviously a role that AI is going to play, though I'm always a big proponent of that expression. We always overestimate the impact in the short term and underestimate the impact in the long term. And I'm just wondering, because I actually heard you talk about how you believe there was going to be a new physical format. And so when you sort of try to peer around the corner, not just a year or two, but 5, 10 years, how do you see this? Where do you see this could go? And how do you try to see that? Or are you even trying to do that? Is that part of how you're trying to experience the world? Are you doing what you know how to do and doing it great?
Okay. So, um,
Sorry, there was like 5 questions in there.
that's fine. So I'll try to answer a few of the questions. So I think what I said was I hope there's a new physical format someday, and I wouldn't be it wouldn't shock me if that were to happen. I'll also say that I feel like I feel like the world is in a phase of dematerialization right now, which personally I love. And I'll say what I mean by that is
Mhm.
that in the modern era, it's been about consumers collecting more stuff, right? And the stuff was physical stuff, right? You say in my business, you'd have a record player, you'd have a turntable, you'd have a receiver, you'd have speakers, you might have a separate amp and a receiver, then you'd have a collection of records, then you had to have a CD player, then you had to have a bookshelf full of CDs, right? Now we have all of that is in our smartphone, right? So we have far more music and less physical stuff, right? Same thing with books. You can have 1,000 books on your Kindle or in your smart device. Um, Things are getting smaller, and physical objects are actually disappearing. You know, we don't have cameras anymore. I also wouldn't be surprised if we don't get a new physical format. But like I said, you can't predict the future. And in terms of where the industry is going, I don't try to forecast. I don't try to see the future. But getting back to your very first question of the interview is I try to maintain what we call beginner's mind, which is just
Mhm.
a sense of openness and wonder and excitement about what's new and what's next, right? And I've never let go of that. It's just part of who I am. New technologies, new ideas, new discoveries, new trends. When something new is coming, I like to try it. And honestly, I think I just like to try it for the fun of it because I find novelty amusing, right? It could be a new skateboard wheel. It could be a new software. It could be, and I think that's a mindset. It really is. You just embrace the new. And, you know, there's it seems like there's more than two kinds of people, but it does seem like that people are roughly uh, broken into two types in this area, where there are people who love to embrace the new and love everything that's new, and they see a new design, and the people who prefer tradition find it ugly and shocking, and but I'd be like, well, that's weird. I like it. I think it's dangerous to try to forecast or predict the future so that you can get there before the others and have a win, because I don't think I think the future is the unknowable unknown. You
Mhm.
just can't, but you just have to be uh if you know that you can't know it, if you have humility and openness and you approach the future with excitement and wonder, then then you can navigate. So it's just I think it's more about navigating.
Yeah, my sort of axiom I always have in my head is change is always coming. And in terms of a individual, it's the mindset. And then in terms of an organization, it's structuring the company so it's ready for that change to be able to adapt to it. Because as you said, I don't know what's going to come either. And I find that exciting. I think people find that a little terrifying sometimes, especially when it happens and it's unexpected. But mindset is such a huge part of this. We're already going over, but I do have two more questions I want to ask you. Uh, one was just a an open ended one, which is this is peering into your company that most people never get to see, and I'm just curious, what would surprise people about your leadership style? We've talked a little bit about sort of your mentoring around people. I presume a lot of your mindset you've talked about, you try to impart to others to think and operate in those ways. Is there something else that would surprise people about how you operate?
Um, Probably a lot of things. In my businesses, I have emphasized process over outcome.
Hmm.
And I think people would probably find that surprising. Yeah. Um, and I've done that because that's the only thing I can really control.
Mhm.
I have no illusion of control. I've been meditating since I was 14 years old. And I have a real, I have a lot of, uh, humility around the idea that I'm powerless over the universe, but we can design processes and iterate and have dogged incremental improvement. And then if we know what we're doing, kind of what you were pointing to before, we can have more positive outcomes. It's a way of not creating your own luck, but uh, positioning uh, the business to have more positive outcomes. So it looks like you're lucky.
Two last questions here. So going back to this concept of the pay it forward that I've become and the mentorship, I presume you get a lot of people talking to you about wanting to get into the music industry. Let's talk about it not from a band level. Let's talk about it from the suit side, the business side. Someone's in their early 20s, comes to you. I'm sure you have a lot of advice. I could do a whole episode on the advice you probably give to people, but is there one that bubbles to the top right now that sort of resonates that like this is the one thing? If you don't remember anything else, remember this that I just shared with you.
Sure. I would say, yeah, I don't know how to break into the music industry because I'm still trying to do it. You know, no one ever hired me.
Yeah.
So, uh, and I'm not sure I'm hireable. But what I would say is this: uh, follow your passions, follow the fun.
Mhm.
Right? Usually, there's going to be a couple things that you're into that feel fun to you. For me, it was music and tech.
Mhm.
Right? I, and I found success at the intersection of those pursuits. I found that in recording engineering, right?
Mhm.
I can have a desk with 1,000 knobs and an electric guitar. And man, when those two things came together for me, I was in heaven. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, and then the business flowed out of that.
Mhm.
Um, so, so try to find what try to find what excites you, because then if you're going into an area that's not fun for you, then you'll never have the endurance to do it uh, longer and harder than the people who do find it fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So so find what you like and go for that, and try to find the intersection of things that you're interested in, and because that's going to be the sweet spot.
Yeah. I love all of that. Brett, thank you so much for doing this today. I could keep talking to you for another hour. You are uh, clearly a creative who understands process and understands the value of that. And I love that you weave technology and art so seamlessly together. This is the one question I gave you in advance that I'd like to end each interview with is describe yourself in 6 words.
Okay. So my 6 words are going to be uh, grateful, creative kid, loves the universe.
I love that. That just makes complete sense after everything I've gotten to know of you over the years. So thanks for sharing that. Thanks for joining me. For everyone out there, go discover an epitaph, anti-Hellcat, burning heart artists. They're incredible. Thanks again, Brett, and see everyone next time.
Thanks, Jeremy.